Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Break.com talks with Isabel Gullo, co founder and the executive director at Care4Paws. If you haven't heard of it, the Care4Paws works to reduce pet overpopulation, keep animals out of shelters, and improve quality of life for pet families in need. Remember, before we begin, if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Isabel, and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. I loved the work that you do, but I'm really eager to tell our listeners more about you guys. And let's begin with what is the story of Care for Paws? How it all began? What motivated you to start this project?
So, Care4Paws came about in 2009, and at the time, for several years, I'd been volunteering at a local county shelter, helping with the dogs mainly. There were dogs and cats, and we were caring for about 120 dogs in a shelter, probably made for 40 dogs. They kept coming in, and we adopted a few out, and more would come in. And so a few of us got together and started looking at ways we could prevent them from becoming homeless in the first place. So that led to it led to Care for Paws ultimately, but we started talking about what kind of services the community needed that we saw. What were the reasons why these pets were relinquished in the first place? So, lack of access to spaying and neutering, lack of access to veterinary care, pet food, dog training, or behavioral training in general for dogs and cats, lack of housing, just different situations that made families feel like they couldn't keep their pets anymore. So basically, we created programs around this. So free space and neuters, assistance with veterinary care, vaccine clinics. We started actually working with youth as well because we realized that really the future of animal welfare is with our youth. So we wanted humane education to be an important part of what we do. We wanted to make sure that we work in the community to provide our services, so that really to make sure people have access to it and learn about it, because that was a big thing that we noticed as well. Even if someone offered free services or low cost services, the public might not know about them. So how do we connect them with these services that they so desperately needed? And so there's the services on one hand, and then the educational component, which is really important. And so it kind of all came together as Care4Paws. And then since then, we've grown a lot, going from it was a $50,000 budget in our first year of 2010 to $1.5 million budget now, 14 years later or 13 years later. So we've had a lot of growth, a lot of learning, and we keep looking at the needs of the community to make sure that we are really helping the pet families that need us the most.
That's great, and really, it's wonderful to see how much you actually have grown, right? So it's really an amazing thing. But nowadays, what are some of the key programs and initiatives that you offer to promote this responsible pet ownership, as you said?
Yeah, so we have our biggest program is our mobile community medicine and spay neuter outreach, and it's a long title, I know, but it combines programs that we started originally that were separated. And so because now we have our own mobile clinics. We've had two for quite some time, and then we're getting our third. It's a brand new 37-foot clinic that we are getting in this summer and that we're going to be launching, and that's going to allow us to help so many more pet families. It's much larger, better equipped than our other units. And so this program is all about access to care. So providing free space and neuters or space and neuters for a donation to reduce pet overpopulation. We have our community medicine services are there's anything from exams to treatment of wounds, and we see a lot of skin infections and ear infections and eye infections that can be really painful for the pet. We offer dentals and mask removals and even eye surgeries. And so there are a lot of different things that we can do in these mobile clinics. We're not full service vet, but we can do a lot, like I said. And then when we are operating and doing things inside our mobile clinics, we host a walking vaccine clinic every time where people can come. So I know you have a dog. So let's say that you needed to get vaccines and flea treatment and a microchip and a nail trim. We can provide all that. And it's literally you're not required to have an exam for the pet. Of course, we take a look and make sure that we are doing everything we can, but for the pet, but you can really come to us without making an appointment for these basic services, and you can walk out of there and having spent probably less than $60. So for a lot of pet families, that's huge because vet care is really expensive, and sometimes it's tough to get in with your veterinarian now because everybody's so overbooked and overworked. And so a lot of people are coming to us because they know we can provide these basic services for their pets. And that way, you prevent future disease. And we can also, at that point, when they come to these walking clinics, we can talk to them about spaying and neutering if their pets are not altered, and explain why it's important, and kind of start building that relationship. Maybe they're not ready quite yet, but they might be, so it's just starting that dialogue. And then also just saying, okay, we think that you need to see our vet because of this skin problem or whatever it might be. So it's a really, I call it like our most important community outreach tool, because people come to us and then we are able to just connect them with other services that they might need. And we build relationships and trust in the community, which is another thing. That was a big barrier in the past, where people, they didn't have access to service, and they were also some were also afraid of the unknown, of seeking out services somewhere. So if you're right in the community, right where they live, there's more of the relationships are really key to everything that we do.
Well, honestly, this idea of having like a mobile care, it's one of the most unique things I've seen, like even in this podcast, to the different organizations we talked about it. I think that's the first time I actually heard something like this. And as you mentioned, like relationships, I keep wondering how relationships and partnerships must be vital to the work that you do to be able to, again, reach communities and provide those different services. Could you tell us about the role and what partnerships do you have right now that are more meaningful to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from the get-go, co-founder is Carlos Abitia, and then also we had help of a lot of former shelter volunteers, and so Carlos always said that we have to build partnerships everywhere, and that was really that got us started, and really partnering up with a lot of different organizations within the animal welfare community, but then also with human welfare agencies, because for us it's really about the pet family as a unit. So there's an incredible bond between the pet and their people. And so when you help people with pets, you help that family, and you help the pet stay with the family. So we look at that, and that's really a priority for us. So with these partnerships that we have, we can help so many more pet families, because all these agencies, refer pet families in need to us. We can also seek help from them, or we can do collaborative events. We work really closely, for example, with Santa Barbara County Animal Services and San Luis Obispo County Animal Services, and since they are, really in touch in the community with pets they're trying to help and prevent animals from coming to their shelters, it's just a really good fit for us to be working together in that way. And we help sell dog licenses, for example, and we refer people back and forth, and just in general. For example, we have this program that we started together with Domestic Violence Solutions for Santa Barbara County, and it's called Safe Haven. And what we saw, this was back in 2020, before the pandemic, that a lot of pet families that were exposed to abuse, the survivors would stay with the abusers for an average of 2 years longer because of a pet. So they were for fear of that. So if they left and they couldn't take the pet with them, what would happen to this pet? The outcome could be terrible. And so we wanted to provide the gap, or I'm sorry, provide just bridge that gap for the pet families, so that they could leave an abusive situation and take their animals with them. So we provide foster care and boarding for these families. And sometimes we've had some pets stay with us for over a year, because when you're in that situation, it takes you a while to rebuild your life, with if you have kids or you have to find work and you have to maybe rebuild your financial situation and find pet friendly housing, which is almost impossible these days. So we are there kind of, as a really big support system and safety net system to make sure that no one has to leave their pets behind when they leave an abusive environment. So again, these relationships with, for example, with domestic violence solutions, we work with our DA's office here locally in Santa Barbara County. And just again, it's critical that we are all working together so that we can help more community members.
Oh, I love that you mentioned this program specifically, because I think sometimes we look at the animal fair cause as a thing somehow detached from human welfare, right? And it's not. When you have a pet, your life, it's their life. So you need to look at it in a more holistic thing. So this is really actually quite educational, honestly, right now. Yes. And there was one thing that we were talking before, that I mentioned to you before this interview began, that I really liked it. It's about the relationship that you try to facilitate and try to have between homelessness, like homeless people that have pets, and how they can be in a fair situation for both, for this animal care. Could you tell us a little bit more about this? How does Care4Paws address the need of homeless individuals and their pets?
We have this program called Companion Pet Assistance, and through that program, we support pet families in need with things like pet food and supplies and grooming, and help with behavioral training, like I mentioned, and so various services that allows families to keep their pets. And that program works, of course, very closely with our mobile community outreach spay neuter program. But through this Companion Pet Assistance program, we have a lot of services available to the unsheltered pet families we see. So with, the financial struggles that many are experiencing right now, and the housing market and everything being so difficult, a lot of families are becoming homeless. And we want to be there again to bridge that gap, to be a safety net. And so we have, for example, we go, there's a park called Alameda Park in Santa Barbara, where ever since the pandemic started, we've been there every Thursday. We provide the pet food and the supplies. We make sure we connect pet families that are living, on the streets or in their cars, to all the kinds of services that they might need. And there are human welfare agencies that participate in these events too, which is great. And then in addition, what we learned was that, we kept asking, do you need pet food? No, I actually don't need pet food. I need help grooming my pet, because I can't do that. How can you do that if you're living in your car or on the street? How are you going to provide baths? And so we provide free grooming once a month at this park, to pets of the unhoused, and that's been hugely successful and popular. And then we're starting to duplicate that at other parts in the county, as well as San Luis Obispo County. So we're growing that aspect of the services we provide for the unhoused. And then recently we partnered up with Dog Street Coalition, and they are a national organization with chapters everywhere across the country. They do amazing work, and a lot of all of their vets actually, and their teams are volunteer based. So they just start these collaborations with different groups and individuals, and then they have some companies donate the supplies, and so they can do so much on a fairly small budget, I believe, because of it. And so we started partnering with them this year in 2023, and it's been great. We've done a couple events so far. We have a doctor, Dr. Alex Gomes, that comes out. He's been working with Street Dog Coalition for a while, so he comes out and volunteers his time. And we're just able to provide these basic services for unhoused pet families. And we also, in addition to vaccines and checkups and other things, we can sign people up for future appointments if they need, let's say, a spay neuter surgery or dental care. And then we also have pet food and supplies available so that they kind of get everything they need, or most of the things that they need. in during this event. So that's I'm so excited about it and really grateful for this new partnership. Because again, it's just about reaching more pet families in need, and we can do that through these collaborations.
This is really, really beautiful and quite thoughtful, honestly. I really liked it. But now, looking to the future, what are Care4Paws goals and visions for maybe expanding or improving yourself? So what's ahead for you guys?
Yeah, so we recently in 2022 expanded to our mobile clinic services to San Luis Obispo County. So that's a little bit to the our north of Santa Barbara County. So that was a big step for us. We had worked in Santa Barbara County since 2009, and so expanding in that way, you know, it's a big area to cover. So we have a lot of work to do here in both of our communities. We would like to do more work further south, in Kern County, for example. There are some really high need areas around us where they need our kind of services. It's just tough to be in so many places. We're doing a lot on a relatively small budget and with a small staff and volunteer team, and everybody's working so hard, and we really have the best crew, but we can only do so much. And so we want to make sure that we take care of our backyard, as we call it, before we expand further. But definitely we are talking about other areas that we would like to service or serve. But I would say one important thing that we have come up with, it's a community outreach consulting program where we realize that we have something that we can offer. We have a model that we know works for many communities. And so if there are groups out there that might want to do something similar, they don't have to start from scratch the way we did. The learning curve is pretty high when you start something like this, especially for me. My background is in journalism, and I then became a shelter volunteer. And all of a sudden I'm running a nonprofit, and you're learning about all these aspects of not just the nonprofit, but how do you reach community members in need? How do you build these programs? How do you fundraise? Even bilingual materials that we've come up with over time, all of that we can share in these consulting sessions that are free. Maybe at some point we could charge something for it, and that will go back to pay for our programs. But right now we're offering it for free, and it's really it's exciting. I just always have goosebumps when I'm talking to people, because they're excited about going out into the community, and they're grateful that they're getting some advice along the way so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. We always say we're there to support you as you launch or whatever it is that your goal is with this program. But for most, I would say there's so many groups, whether they're a humane society or a municipal shelter or a rescue group or whatever the organization is all about, they are seeing the benefits of working in the community. So that is, um, you know, that's what we like to see more of. And like I said, we can't be everywhere. So if this is our opportunity to help create more community-based programs in the United States, then that's really where I'd like to focus a lot of my time. So a lot of exciting things happening. And I should mention too, we have this incredible opportunity with PetSmart Charities. They have launched a big initiative because they also know that they can't be everywhere. They can't spend money in every single city. But what they came up with is an access to care grant, and only 10 nonprofits in the United States got this grant. And it's really a multi-year initiative, but this is our first year, and Care4Paws was selected, and we selected the city of Oceano in San Luis Obispo County. It's very much an underserved community. I think the 42% of the community members are Hispanic. There's really no access. They have no access to pet services whatsoever. There's no vet clinic. There's no dog trainer. There's really nothing for them there locally. And if you don't have transportation or funding, you really can't provide the care that your pet needs. And that's difficult. Of course, it's difficult for the whole family when you're in that situation. So for us to be able to come in and work in this community and have the support from PetSmart Charities is huge, and it will be a game changer for this community. So on August 6th, we are launching our first pet wellness clinic. We're going to roll out our 3 mobile units, and we're going to have multiple vet teams working and do vaccines and flea treatments and microchips, in addition to all space and neuters and medical care. So this is, really big step forward for us. And then if we qualify to move on for consecutive years with PetSmart Charities, then this is going to be, I believe, a 4-year project, so that we can stay consistently in the city and make sure that access to care is sustainable. So, which is really what this grant is all about.
Wow, that's incredible, honestly, and I'm super happy and like I gotta say, can I say proud? I am proud of this. This is an amazing achievement for you guys. Honestly, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks.
But I need to ask you now, to keep going on, you also need donations. You also need help, volunteers, as you mentioned before. What are the best ways to get in touch with Care4Paws to help you keep going?
So we have on our website, which is care4paws.org, and that's with the number 4 in the middle. There's a donation button on every single page, so you can't miss it. So you can always go there and donate. And we also have a help. It's just care4paws.org/help page, where you can see different ways that you can contribute, whether it's one-time donation, becoming a monthly donor, which we love because that's some income that we can depend on every month. You can become a sponsor of our mobile clinic. That's something great that we're doing right now, especially with this new clinic that we're rolling out. You can become a sponsor and even have your business logo or your name on the back of the vehicle. So we're excited about that. And then you can also, for example, if you want to maybe include us in your estate planning, further down. So you might want to do a planned gift to Care4Paws. So there's ways you can learn about that. You can, sign up to be a volunteer there. You can do a pet food fundraiser for us. There's so many different ways that people can give, and we appreciate everything that that we receive. It's really what makes us able to do this work, and we have incredible donors and grantors and business supporters and volunteers, and that's really I can't thank everybody enough for allowing us to do our work and for being there through thick and thin, especially through the pandemic, which was, when we really stepped up our services and started helping. We went from helping 7,000 pet families in a year to more than 20,000. That's a huge jump for a small organization. And since then, we've expanded to a different county, and our supporters have been there along the way. And so again, we can't do our work without them.
Wow, honestly, you cannot, right? We need more people getting involved always. For everyone watching this or listening, you can find the link to their website in the description of this episode. So it's pretty easy to get in touch, to know more about what they're doing, to keep following them. Please go there and help out if you can. Isabel, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed meeting you.
It was my pleasure. And for everybody listening, also, thank you so much. And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the Care4Paws. Go to their website and donate if you can. Bye, and I see you at the next episode.